Mishnah Kiddushin 3:12 states the following: Kol hamakom shayen kiddushin ve'en avera. In all places where there is kiddushin, where there is marriage, ve'en avera, without sin, chabalat cholech achar hazachar. The child of that union follows after or walks after the status of the male, of the father. Ve'ezezo. So the Mishnah is saying, what is the case? Give us an example. So if you have the daughter of a priest or the daughter of a Levi, a Levi, or daughter of a regular Israelite, and she marries the Cohen or the Levite or an Israelite. Why is that important? Well, if the marriage is eligible, then the status of the father is conferred upon the child, and this is important in the case of a Cohen, because he wants to make sure that he marries the appropriate people that he can marry. Because if he doesn't, we're going to see that there's a consequence to that. But in all places, or in all places where there is kiddushin, where there is marriage is contracted or sanctified, but there is sin, the child or the product of the union follows after the status of the parent that is flawed or has a defect. Ve'ezo, and what is the case? The Mishnah says, Zo almana lechochen gadol. For example, the widow marries the high priest, or gerusha ve'chalutza lechochen hediot. A divorced woman, or a chalutza is a woman. Let's say that she was married, her husband dies, and she was childless when he died. Then she is obligated to marry her husband's brother, or the next in line, the kin that is next in line. She doesn't do it correctly, things of that nature. She marries a priest. There's an issue there. Well, what about a woman who is a mamzer? She is the product of an illicit union, a forbidden union. She's the product of incest or of adultery, or a netina, the descendants of the Gibeonites. And she marries an Israelite. Those are forbidden. A mamzer can only marry another mamzer, or a convert is usually what is understood. Or bat Yisrael mamzer or lanetin. So the vice, the converse. If the daughter of an Israelite marries to a mamzer or a natin, that's also problematic. בכל מה שאין לה עליו קידושין, אבל יש לה על אחרים קידושין חבלת ממזר. So let's say that you have a woman who is she's not able to marry a certain group of people, but she's able to marry another group of people. If she has a relationship with the ones that are prohibited to her, ve'ezeh haba al achat mikol arayot shebatorah, then the child is a mamzer, if she is marrying the cases of the forbidden unions that are listed in the Torah. So the child bears the consequences of that, and that's why sexual purity is very important, especially in those cases of adultery, incest, and so forth. And then the last part, v'chol mi she'en la lo ala belo al acherim kedushim havalad kemota ve'ezezeh velad shivcha v'nachrit. What about if she is eligible? She's not eligible to marry certain people, but she can marry others. The child will follow the status of the mother, and what's the example that's given here is in the case of the shivcha, or of the nachrit. So a female slave and a non-Jew, a foreigner. So in this particular case, the child is not a mamzer. The child is not a product of an illicit union. I mean, it's not an acceptable union. It's not a legal Jewish marriage. But the child does not bear the consequences of being a mamzer. The child bears the consequences of the fact that the mother is not Jewish, so the child is not Jewish. And in that particular case, of course, the child can convert and then is able to marry within the Jewish community in those relationships that are acceptable.